have to say thank you to let me work with you. Within my role, I would say that my main concern is to be able to connect with your needs and to meet them insofar as possible. I believe that international mobility is a real need you have, because you need to share your knowledge, your techniques for the development of your research. For you, learning is continuous. I think we can be useful. The human resources departments can be useful for that. I'll be sharing with you some insights about how we, human resources professionals, can make this mobility one reality through selection processes. We try to introduce good practices in research centers. Let me first give you a context. Not so much because I think tomorrow the European Commission will be talking here, but we are in Europe. We have the European Research Area helping to us, the professionals, to develop our work. Therefore, it will be useful for you to familiarize yourselves with European organizations and documents that have defined the trends to be followed by us. Support personnel. But these trends had to be followed by researchers too. Here, I'm referring to the actions of the European Commission. I meant to implement human resource policies in research centers. Only some data. In 2000, a debate began about the need to create the European Research Area. In 2003, the European Council announced its intention to award those research centers that would implement human resources policies. This is the logo. Beautiful, isn't it? For us, it's very beautiful. And for us, it has an important meaning. The research centers will have it only if they follow the principles of the European Charter for Researchers, published in 2005. More documents. For example, the Code of Conduct for High-End Researchers, the pillar of the Charter of Researchers. To have a code of conduct means institutions should follow its rules. No, we have no chance to ignore them. The code is based on the principles of open, transparent, and merit-based recruitment. That's to say, by hiring, employers should establish recruitment procedures, which are open, efficient, transparent, etc. Regarding selection, very important, we have to have selection committees, and these committees should be impartial. Transparency. Candidates, you, should be informed about the recruitment process and the selection criteria, the number of available positions, and the career development prospects. And maybe the most important thing, judging merits. The selection process should take into consideration the whole range of your professional experience. There are a lot of documents maybe you are interested in, but the team of Euraccess is doing things very well. You have the website. You can consult the website if you want more information about that. I thought when preparing this presentation that what could be interesting for you. And I thought maybe we have some secrets as human resources professionals we can share with you today. Then I decided to do this presentation giving to you some advices about some particular aspects we have in ICN2 in consideration when we are recruiting. What is going on in ICN2? Well, I am happy to say we have already taken many steps to improve our capability of attracting talent. Really, I do. I'm happy. Within our organization, a cultural change has been promoted. Important, cultural change in research environment. Sometimes because we are we are brave to make our self-evaluations. Externally sometimes, because we are alert about what is happening externally, not only externally Catalonia or Spain, in Europe, in the world. As said, our priority is to bring to our research institute the best talent. Our major challenge has been, and still is, to raise awareness among leaders of research groups about the meaning of the open, transparent, and merit-based policy. To inform groups leaders and postdocs, debate about the real meaning of the principles, talk about how to implement them in our organization. This has been our particular exercise of cultural change. The most frequently repeated comment from our researchers has been that hiring in research is often done directly. They have their own network. And we have always replied, always. This is important. Networking is a very important part of recruiting, but it must be complemented by objective selection criteria and implementation of selection methodology. The main tool we have used to change their minds has been the creation of working groups in the Institute. Working groups with the participation of researchers, postdocs, senior researchers, group leaders, and human resources together, all together in a room, talking about selection, about how to achieve this challenge that is have the best person in our institution. These groups have drawn up one selection procedure, taking into account the principles of the Charter. And the key of this procedure is that is one agreed procedure. We have done it all together. This way, we could include objective selection criteria based on the merits of candidates, your merits, and we could create impartial selection panels. As for our external actions, it is very important for us, for the Human Resources departments, to identify those sources, selection sources, important for our researchers. They know which universities, which institutions share synergies with them. And moreover, we are committed to attending events, such as today's, to get to know you and to increase the visibility of ICN2. All these aspects made up our recruitment process, task, however you want to name it. And now the human resources contribution. Let me talk about the particular contribution of Human Resources Department in ICN2. It has been in revealing the fascinating world of personal skills to researchers, highlighting their importance as factor to be considered in the decision concerning successful candidates. You have to know that personal skills make the difference in many questions when you are facing your research. Some examples you have here: research integrity, innovation, entrepreneurship, communication, oral skills when you are defending your thesis, decision making. Have to say, our work as Human Resources Department doesn't end here. For us, many processes begin when you are in ICN2. Then, our day-to-day is focused on offering to our researchers a personalized career plan, one for each one of our researchers. Examples: induction plan, how difficult is go to work to a foreign country. We are there to help you. Mentoring program. It is very important to have somebody to consult your doubts about the next steps of your career. PhD program with a specific training path with individual monitoring. I can't go into further at the moment, but we will stay with you these 2 days. Please ask to us, what can we do for you? And now, let me finish the presentation talking about the most important part in the selection process. That is, yourselves, candidates. It appears to me that some of you are at the beginning of your research career. Others are just about to move from PhD to postdoc. But all of you have one thing in common. That is, well, you have to design your strategy, your own strategy as researcher. This is a need you have. Maybe you don't know it, but you have it. When facing an interview, there is only one thing you have to know or you have to take into account: what we, recruiters, want to see. And that is, find in front of us someone who knows herself or himself and also is able to tell to us what they can offer as individual. So my advice, my personal advice, identify what you are good at and ask the same question to people you are close to. I'm not just talking about knowing what area of knowledge you have a good understanding of. Chemistry, physics, economics. I'm talking about what can you offer the world. You, only you, because you are an individual. Answer questions such as, what role do I usually play when I work in my team? This is important because you are always working in a team. This is the most difficult part, to know yourselves. The easiest, and I know you have done it, is identify the line of research in which you wish to work. Identify the research centers, universities that work in these lines. But please, very important, identify those institutions with the beautiful logo. This is a guarantee to you, because behind of this logo, there are professionals that take care of your career development. Identify the public financial resources of each country where you wish to work. It's important that you familiarize yourselves with the grants that each country can offer to you. Identify not only researchers that can be an example to you in these centers. Please identify, support people. We are there to help to you. Establish a solid network. And again, not only with researchers, with us. We are there for you. Take good care of this network. It's not enough to send to us a Christmas card. Please send us one email to say the next step you are taking. And to finish, when you are applying, you have a specific call. Please try not to leave your application until the deadline date of your call. Make the life easier for us. We can read your CVs, all the CVs, the last day. It's important. Reply exactly to the requirements outlined in the calls with regard to sending your CV, cover letter, academic records, references. Take care when drafting your cover letter. This is your chance to talk about yourself and include things not allowed in a CV. Avoid a standard cover letter. It is boring to us. When referring to the grades in your academic records, please use the numeric scale that you are asked to use. And absolutely, be yourself during the interviews. We know that. So, I hope I see you in ICN2 in a couple of months, a couple of years. We will be here to respond your questions these 2 days. It's a great opportunity to you to know our field, how we work, how we can help to you to develop your career, the best thing you have at the moment. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I am Lina Donnarumma. I am HR manager at Fondazione Istituto Italiano di Tecnologia, that is a research institution located in Genoa. Genoa is the headquarters, but our institution is all over Italy. There are 11 research centers across Italy and 2 IIT outstations in US, in MIT and in Harvard University. Our fields of research are engineering, artificial intelligence, life science, like neurosciences, drug discovery, genomics, smart materials, nanotechnologies. Our scientific staff is coming from all over the world. In the map, there are the countries. And almost the 50% of our scientific staff is composed by foreigners and Italians that are coming back to Italy. Sorry. And you can see the facts, and on the right, our composition, the quality composition. Student, PhD students, postdoc, researcher or technologist, and principal investigators. This is the composition of our scientific staff. IIT, as I said before, is a cross-disciplinary research environment, and we will hire scientists with different profiles. Our researchers work together in our laboratories, and so an engineer is working together to a neuroscientist, for example. So our recruiting is focused on the quality of our candidates, and we adopt transparent selection procedures. Our procedures are compliance with the European Chart of Researchers and the Code of Conduct for Recruitment of Researchers. Oh, sorry. So, as I said before, our recruitment is made by open call selection. Where we publish our job posts, because the great difficulty for us is searching people, searching the right people. So how we search our people? We publish our job post on the IIT website, on EURAccess. It's more effective during the last years, the publishing on the scientific network like ResearchGate, Frontiers, and similars. Also for specific job posts, in particular when we are searching for our tenure track position, we publish on Nature and on other similar scientific journals. Our scientific staff, as you can see in the last slides, is composed by postdoc, researcher, and technologists. This is the basis. Postdocs, junior, if we will appoint them within 2 or 3 years after the PhD diploma, or senior, if they have at least 3 years experience after the PhD diploma. The appointment at IIT for postdoc lasts 5 or maximum 6 years. And the postdoc are hired by open call, so competitive selections. Research positions lasts 5 years also. There is a difference between the 5 years of postdocs and researchers, because our postdocs, when they arrive at the end of their appointment, or they will apply for a job post for a researcher position, and so they will win the selection, or otherwise they will search in other institutions to proceed their career. Researcher positions are renewable upon an evaluation. It's the same evaluation made for recruiting new people. So it's an hard evaluation. Researchers report to a principal investigator, can be in charge of laboratories and postdocs and students. We have another particular position that is the technologist. We have two types of technologists. A technologist that is focused on technology-oriented research, and a technologist that is focused on manage laboratories and facilities that are of general interest for IIT. This difference is due to the fact that one of the missions of IIT is to develop the technology transfer, the applied research in Italy and in Europe. The technologists report to a principal investigator and can be in charge of postdoc, students, but also technicians, because when they manage laboratories, it's important that also they will help by technicians. So the recruiting, as I said before, by open call. In case of postdoc candidates, we have a search and evaluation committee composed by internal experts. While for researcher and technologist candidates, they will be evaluated by a search and the evaluation committee consisting of both internal and external experts. Our procedure method, our selection method, is characterized by a search committee where some internal experts or external experts are appointed. The search committee will screen all the CVs received for an application for a job post, and the evaluation committee that is composed by a part of the search committee will evaluate the candidates inserted in the short list, and they will evaluate this candidate considering their research activity, their curricula, and also inviting them to a seminar or an interview when it isn't not possible by person, also by Skype call. And these are the skills that we are evaluating during our selection at all levels, postdoc, researchers, and technologists. It's important to focus that during the selection, our evaluators will take in account the specific fields of researcher, the research activity, the bibliometric indicators, the patent fields, etc. But also it's important to take into account the soft skills, and in particular the mobility and the multidimensional career. Don't forget that important, the multidimensional career, because it is meaning that you have to focus not only on your professional domains, but also on soft skills, important, like leadership skills and entrepreneurial skills. Today, when we evaluate a CV, we look at the multidimensional career. Now, I will present you the tenure track process that IIT has introduced in 2012. In previous slides, I presented you the selection for postdoc researcher and technologist. But our principal investigators, and now we have almost 75 principal investigators, are tenured position. When we introduced the tenure track, we established also a standing committee of external evaluators. That is a list of famous scientists all over the world in the fields of life science, drug discovery, robotics, smart materials, that will take part in our selection and evaluation for the scientific staff. Sometimes we appoint one of them to evaluate some researchers or some technologists. But even we appoint them when we have to evaluate the tenure track applicants. Because in the tenure track applicants, the majority of our committee are composed by external evaluators coming from this committee or from our technical and scientific committee. So the evaluation committee, as I said before, this is the search committee for screening CV, evaluation committee for the interviews. The methodology is the same of the previous selections. But I would like to present you our tenure track path. We introduced the tenure track 5 years ago, looking at the American style of tenure track, looking at in particular to Harvard system. And our principal investigators are tenure track, tenured scientists. They carry out their scientific activity in the frame of our scientific plan. And they are fully independent in particular for budget and for recruiting of their persons. They received from us a tenure package, and this is and through this package they can carry out their activity in the free independence. They are hired upon international call. As I said before, we publish, in this case, on the most important scientific journal, and then we spread our job post also among university and research centers all over the world. We establish a search committee and an evaluation committee to evaluate the application, to create a short list of candidates, and go on the evaluation of our applicants for tenure track. But the tenure track path that we introduced is made by 3 stages. The stage 1 is a junior stage. The stage 2 is a more senior stage, and then at last the tenured stage. A scientist can be hired at the first stage, or at the second stage, or at the tenured stage. It depends only from by his seniority, his scientific seniority. The path is the following. The maximum duration of each stage is 5 years. At the end of 5 years, the scientist will be evaluated by an evaluation committee composed, as I said before. Also, if the evaluation is positive, he will pass to the stage, the upper stage. and he will be appointed for other 5 years. If the scientist wants, he can anticipate his evaluations. Senior scientists can also be recruited as a tenured scientist. In this case, they will be appointed with an open-ended contract. For ERC winner, we have a particular tenure track path because ERC starting grant winners can access a tenure track stage 1 position. ERC consolidator grant winners can access to a tenure track stage 2 position, and advanced grant winners can be considered directly for tenured position. In each case, it will be an evaluation and then supervision of the Scientific Technical Committee of IIT. But we are recruiting not also scientific staff, also administrative and technician staff. The recruiting for these positions is also based on a competitive base, publishing job posts on a website also specialized for this type of positions. The evaluation committee is composed by human resource in the organization and by the head of the unit that is searching people. The skills and the level of experience are evaluated by individual group interview and the technical test. But we are using a method to evaluate these people. We apply assessment center and behavioral event interview. The assessment center is a particular methodology to understand if the candidates has the behavioral competencies that match with those required from the job profile. And in the assessment center, we organize individual and group exercises where the candidate put in place his capabilities, in particular with role play. The behavioral event interview is a particular interview where we will ask to the candidate to tell us 5 or 6 experience in their life where they had success or experience where they was weak, with weakness. And this slide is resuming the role that we have in IIT: administrative rules, technical rules, and we have a research support rules that are very strictly, very close to the research area. They are part of, are in charge at the technical office, technology transfer directorate, research organization directorate, and so on. Technician and research support employees could have a PhD degree. In particular, for research support role, we have a lot of scientists that are not working now as a scientist, but that are giving your help. This is our development, career development, from postdoc to researcher technologist, or from researcher to tenure and tenured. And this is our PhD school. We haven't a PhD program because we cannot award a diploma, but we have agreements with Italian universities that will hire PhD, but this PhD will carry out their research activity, their thesis, their project in our laboratories working with our researchers. I thank you for your attention, and please visit our website to know well who is and what to do IIT.
So, good afternoon. I'm really happy to be here today to present you the recruitment process of the LIH, and I would like first of all to thank Berenice for giving us this opportunity this afternoon. So, we are supposed to give you information regarding our recruitment process. It normally should last more or less 20 minutes. I've tried to do my best to keep it short and simple, but of course, feel free to come to our booth just after and ask all the questions you need. So, yes, let me introduce myself a little bit. I'm Virginie de Lancer. I'm HR recruiter at the LIH. I've worked there for a little bit more than 1 year now. And Christelle Massot is also part of the team. That's the person who showed you this in the morning, this beautiful video about Luxembourg and our activity. So, what are we going to talk about? So, a few words about the LIH, just as a quick remember for all the person who didn't attend the first part this morning, and some general principle about the European Charter for Researchers, because of course all our recruitment process is based on these principles. So the LIH recruitment process, of course, from sourcing to recruiting. What we like and don't like when candidates send their application, so some advice. And yes, the last part is about the career development at the LIH. So just a few words now again about our institute. So LIH stands for Luxembourg Institute of Health. We are a biomedical research institute composed of 3 main departments. The biggest one is our Department of Population Health. We also have an oncology, the Department of Oncology for cancer research, and the Department of Infection and Immunity, which is based in Esch. But I won't give you all the details regarding those departments right now. You will find lots of information on the website. So this is not the goal today to, well, give you all the information regarding those departments. A few facts. So we have, as I've just told you, 3 main departments. We have 360 employees of 35 different nationalities. So you don't need to talk Luxembourgish when you come to Luxembourg. And we talk about more or less 60 recruitment per year. As you can see on the pie chart, lots of people, employees come from all the countries around Luxembourg, so Germany, France, Belgium, and Luxembourg, of course. But we also, to answer one question this morning, we also hire people from all the countries all over the world, and we have teams specifically dedicated to help you to have the work permit and all the paper you need to have to come to work to Luxembourg. So now a few words about the European Charter for Researchers. So our recruitment process is based on the European Charter and its code of conduct, which guarantees some principles. You can read them all over there. I won't go through all of them, but the main important, as you explained it a few minutes ago, that's exactly the same situation. So we have to have an open recruitment procedures, which means that we always advertise all our position on international and appropriate job boards. We have also to give you a clear explanation of the recruitment process. So that's, well, a principle that we need to respect. We always select the candidates in selection committees, which bring, so with different people as scientists, and of course the principal investigator, who is very often part of the selection committee. That brings diverse expertise and competencies to be sure we hire the best candidate at the right place. We also need to give you transparent information, so not only in the beginning, but all along the recruitment process. So we try to keep the candidates informed about the status of their application. I know that it's important for you. Sometimes you apply to different positions at the same time. And we try to do our best to keep you informed as soon as possible. And of course, it's important for us to give a feedback at the end. Of course, you receive a negative answer if you are not selected, but when you at least have an interview, we always give a feedback with the strengths and weaknesses when the interview is done. So we know that the number of publications for scientists is important, but when we hire candidates, we don't only consider the number of publications, but also the whole range of experience. As you said before, that's also soft skills are also very important. So we need to take lots of criteria into account when we recruit people, but I will explain this a little bit later. Of course, we like people who have an experience abroad, a first experience abroad. Also for postdoc appointment, we have a clear defined salary in our grid of salary, and after the 4 or 5 years, depending on your project, you receive an assessment, and we always try to move you forward in the hierarchy in the scientific world, I would say. And for the personalized career planning, I will talk a little bit later about that as well. So it took us a few years, of course, to implement a transparent and fair recruitment process at the LIH. So in 2008, we signed the European Charter for Researchers. We got the HR Excellence label in research in 2010. And then after a few years again, in 2016, our recruitment process has been updated with the open, transparent, and merit-based recruitment practices. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the recruitment process itself. So nothing new under the sun, I would say. Let's start with the advertisement phase, and then the interviews and the feedback. So, what do we do when we open a new position? First of all, we always have a meeting with the principal investigator who is looking for a new candidate. We have an in-depth conversation with him, and we try to really understand the needs, because of course we are not scientists, so that's important for us to first of all really have information regarding the research topic, so that's important for us to really understand the needs. And then of course we cover all the other criteria, such as, for example, duration of the position, all the skills needed, of course, the best channel that we need to use to advertise the position. Well, we cover really lots of criteria. And then we create the job description, and we advertise it on all the best channels possible for the position, because it depends sometimes from position to position, it might change. This is... Well, it's gone. No. Sinon, j'ai ma présentation ici. Hein. Faut que ça tourne. C'est incroyable, quoi. C'est toujours vraiment que ça arrive sur le détail. Je dois y revenir en arrière. On était ici. Hop, on était là. There we go. Thank you. So this is an example of a job description that we very often advertise. So as you can see, you have here all the explanation regarding the project. So that gives you lots of information regarding the research topic. It's important for us that you read it carefully so that you don't apply for the wrong position. And then you have also the skills needed. Very often we also write hyperlinks so that you can find other explanation regarding the position or the team or yes, all you need to know about the position itself, and then as usual how to do to apply. These are the main channels that we very often use to advertise our position. ABG, of course, your access, we don't need to mention them. Nature Job, ResearchGate, but that's not the whole list. Of course, we are always open to, well, to learn new channels to advertise position, because of course, we need to be updated on this topic as well, so it's in constant evolution. We know that today the social media are also important, so having a LinkedIn profile, for example, helps a lot when we are looking for specific candidates. So once the job description is advertised, we receive all the application, we analyze them with the principal investigator, and we organize the interviews. The first one is very often through Skype, because first of all, it's cheaper, easier for all of you, and it gives us enough enough information regarding your profile. Though for the first one, that's good, and very often it lasts 1 hour. The second interview is always on site, and to be fair with all the candidates, we always ask the same scenario. So you have to prepare a 15 minutes presentation on your master thesis or on research project of your choice. Sometimes you can choose. Then you have a normal interview with the principal investigator and all the selection committee. And then very often you have the possibility to visit the building, the labs, and to eat with the team, because that's important for us to be sure you will be happy if you are selected in the position. That's really important for us. That's a real marriage. So these are the criteria that we look at when we select the candidates. So during the interview, as I told you before, not only the number of publication is taken into account, but all these criteria are also important. So education and training, as you can assume, technical expertise, initiative and autonomy, that's also very important. Responsibility, job impact, that's maybe here too difficult to explain it today, but you can come and I will explain you what it is about. Leadership and supervision, of course, that's not for all the position, but when it's needed, of course, we assess these skills as well. And of course, communication in an international environment where different research areas are interconnected, that's really important for us. So these are all the criteria that we assess during the interview. So the final steps, once we have seen all the candidates during the interview, we always debrief with the whole selection committee. It took us very often a long time sometimes because it's difficult to select a candidate. So all member of the selection committee has to give his opinion about all the candidates that we have seen, and we try to have a consensus. Sometimes I can assure you that it's difficult. But then we select someone. This person received a contract offer, and well, as soon as possible, we send them a contract offer. And then once we have received the candidate's approval, we send an answer to all the candidates. So the ones who had the opportunity to have an interview received a formal feedback, really detailed. And for the candidate not selected at all, they just received a negative answer. But it's important for us to send at least something to all the candidates who applied for a position. And duration of the process between 2 and 3 months. That's an average. These are the main positions that we very often recruit. So scientists, postdoc, PhD student, research engineers, and laboratory technicians. But I have to tell you, to be honest, that very often we recruit PhD students, laboratory technician, and postdoctoral fellow. As I told you, we are talking about 60 positions per year, and the duration, well, is between 1 to 5 years, and sometimes these CDD are converted to permanent contract when it's possible. So we always do our best to find solutions and to convert contracts to permanent ones. Was too quick. So what we do and now and don't like in the application and interviews, as my colleagues said it before, don't send mass CVs and generic CVs and cover letter without any explanation or personal feelings, because of course that's difficult for us to really understand what you are looking for if that's just a generic letter and CV. Well, if you don't explain anything, of course, for us, it shows us that you are not really motivated for the position, and then, of course, we are not really, we don't want to recruit you, basically. So, and sometimes we received application for all the positions we have open on the website. So don't do it, because of course, well, how can we react? I mean, that means that you don't really know what you are looking for. And just because of that, we very often reject the candidate. So don't do it. We like clear CV with clear sections showing links with your competencies. A tailored motivation letter for the project and position addressed to the right scientist. Very often they like it. Be prepared for the interview and the presentation. Sometimes even when a candidate comes to an interview and we ask question, what do you know about the LIH? Sometimes they just say it's 20 minutes far from the station. Very good. Good to know it. Thank you. So, well, you need to be prepared for the interview. Of course, English is important. We are not only looking for real fluent candidates, but at least you need to know, well, you need to be able to speak English a little bit. And I said before, we do like candidates who has a first experience abroad. So now about the last part, the career development at the LIH. So among the Human Resources Department, we dedicated a specific team to develop the career of our employees. So this process starts at the very beginning once a candidate is on board. Each employee receives a training plan according to his position. We also organize induction day when he arrives, so that well, all the new employees knows who is who and who does what at the LIH. At the beginning of each year, you you have a meeting with your supervisor to define clear objectives for the year, so short-term objectives, and then mid-term and long-term objectives. And then at the end of the year, you always have an appraisal just to see if you reach the goals, and if not, you always receive a personal development plan. So we are now also in the process of implementing an e-learning training. The goal, of course, is to keep the best candidates on board and, yes, to attract talents. So this brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you for your attention. I would be more than happy to answer your questions, so feel free to visit us to our booth, and yes, we are available for you. Thank you.
So let's time for your questions now.
Hello.
Hello.
Bonjour. No. Oh, okay. Hello. Is this better? Yeah, okay.
Closer to your mouth, please.
Closer to my mouth. Okay. I was just wondering. Oh, okay. I see. What is the percentage of applicants for the three of which you presented us? What is the percentage of applicants that is accepted? And for those that reach the second stage of the selection process, what are the main reasons for refusing them?
Well, it depends on the position, of course. Sometimes you might have, 100 applicants for only one, position. So very often we try to have a first shortlisted candidates of, maximum 6 candidates. And then we always try to have maximum 3 candidates for the second interview. And why we select, why we prefer, that's the goal of your question, I assume. Why do we prefer some candidates in comparison with the other ones? Well, as I explained it before, first of all, we always read the cover letter. And when a candidate is well prepared in an interview, when the presentation is well organized, of course, that makes the difference. And when I don't remember, someone talked about this, I don't know if maybe it was you, I don't remember, to be honest, but yes, on top of to be prepared, you need to know what you are looking for. And if you just arrive in an interview without knowing anything about the topic, about the organization itself, about why you could be interested in this position, of course that's difficult, and you can't know how many people are not prepared for an interview. That's just incredible sometimes.
Yes, for us is the same. Essentially, we have a job post with hundreds of applicants, but also job post with 5 applicants. It depends from the job profile that we are searching for. In general, our short list are composed by maximum 5 persons. And this Scientists are invited to have a seminar and an interview with our evaluation committee. And in this case, consider that human resource in the organization attends to all interview and seminar to evaluate the soft skills among candidates and to help and support scientists to evaluate all the shortlisted candidates. The difference is made by the interview, the seminar, and the interest for the position, the interest for the institution that is publishing, is searching the position.
More or less the same. We have general calls, then we are offering the possibility to apply for grants, for grants, and then we select more or less 10, 15 people at the same time in order to have people that maybe in the future can form part of our institute. When we have an individual call, then unfortunately we can select only one person. So our screening is depends on the call. More or less 10 people are interviewed by Skype, and the final interviews are not more than 3 or 4 people, because it's difficult to find you. Yeah. And regarding why we recruit people, it's very important to have in front of us people that want the positions. And we notice if we have a person that only is looking for a job, you really have to have the wish to hold this position. It's different to us. Because the scientist can see if you have the technique, if you have the knowledge they need for this or this project. And we, the recruiters, the human resources professionals, can notice if you're interested in the position and if you fix the team or if you are only looking for a job. It's very important. And you have to serve yourselves, is that we don't know you. And then you have to think this is your job. Looking for a job is a job.
Yes, if I may add something to this. We know that in the scientific world, being a scientist is really difficult. So you need to really to be passionate. So if we can't see the light in your eyes during the interview, if you don't really want the job, if you can't show some real motivation, then of course we have hesitation and it's difficult for us. You might have all the technical skills or all the personal skills, but if you can't show your real motivation and that you are really passionate about the topic, then we know that it's difficult to be a scientist on a daily basis, because you have to redo and do it again some experience. And if you are not passionate at all, well, it won't last for a long time. So we want to see the light in your eyes. Yeah.
Hello. I would like to ask you about a specific question for recruitment with the point of view of the university, not this, the one of postdoc or PhD. You talked about OTM and labelization, and the institute and universities who start this labelization process have to think about their practices and to improve them. So could you give us an example of something which you had to improve in your recruitment process thanks to this labelization? Thank you.
I can start, but as IIT, we haven't not yet the HR for excellence, the logo. We are evaluating, we are doing a gap analysis to find out what are the improving area in our procedures. But we are only starting now. The process that I presented before is the actual process, not considering the improving that will come from the gap analysis of our processes. My colleagues have the logo.
Well, from my point of view, it's difficult to explain because I've worked as a recruiter at the LIH for a little bit more than 1 year, and they had already this logo and all these practices in, yes. So from my point of view, it's important, as someone also explained this morning, not to recruit the neighbor of your neighbor and so on. So we need to be fair from the beginning until the end, and that's why we always organize the interviews with the selection committees, so that we all have different expertise and we all give our opinion to select the best candidate for the right place. And yes, I think this is part of all these beautiful logo we have, but not, you know, very often scientists have their own network and they like recruiting people that they know very well and so on. But from the HR point of view, that's not fair. And sometimes we know that all around the world, you might have more interesting candidates for a position. And it's good for us to, well, it's fair. We think that it's fair to advertise the position everywhere on international channels, and to also, from the HR point of view, to select candidates that probably sometimes they would have not have been chosen by scientific because they don't know them, or they don't know their supervisor or the university they come from. And so, well, we think that it's important to see the best candidate for a specific position. Yes.
So I have to say, group leaders normally are very impatient. They know the people and they know that in 1-2 days they are working with us in the center. Our labor is difficult because we have to stop this impulse and we have to establish objective criteria, and that means a process that were 2-3 months, because we are looking for the best, not only the person he or she knows. If I have to have to say the truth, when I started to work in ICN2 4 years ago, I've been told that selection was something that the scientists do alone. And I said, yeah, wait, 2-3 months, 6 months, because I want to be there. For us, for the human resources profession, it's difficult to be there together with the scientist. I think we have a lot to give to the science by improving procedures. Our expertise is not in science, it's in how to select people, how to give people illusion for going to work. And then we have to put in value our expertise. For that, for us, it's very important to analyze the personal skills. It's not the same. Two persons with the same knowledge is not the same in a team. Normally, the work in a lab is very close. You have to interact a lot with people, and that makes the difference. There are people who can share their experience, their knowledge, without making that's a doubt for the rest of people. And there's people that it's selfish and then cannot give their experience. And that makes the difference in a lab. So how to improve procedures? We have it easy because the European Commission have launched an amount of documents when we can see the competencies of researchers, we can see the steps we have to follow. But I think in each human resources department, we are giving our expertise as professionals. I want to thank that.
Hello. I have a question. Does your organization, company, organize trainings for PhD students? And after they finish those trainings, they can see the skills that student has. And are you recruiting after those trainings or not?
So I don't like to name it training, because training to me is knowledge, scientific knowledge, technical knowledge. When we organize something, I prefer to name it workshops, experience day, because one skill is not something you can learn. You have to experience that. How to, for example, oral communication for your thesis defense, you can train that. I have practiced a lot for today for my speech, and you can train that. But how to interact with people is something that you have inside yourself. All that you can do is look inside yourself and recognize what are you good at, what you have to improve at, and then work a bit in those skills you have to improve. When we make trainings or workshops, we don't analyze what have you learned. It's impossible. We see that, we see your evolution in the years. It's not the same when you began your PhD and in the 4th year. It's not the same.
Okay, my point was we in different countries we get another level of knowledge, for example, and let's see we have the leadership skills or the others, but we can't have the knowledge level in your country, for example. So I was asking if we can provide some trainings to get the needed level, so we can work in your company and so on.
I don't know if I understand the question very well. In the PhD, for example, in these 4 years, we have designed a training path, because you have to assimilate not the same skill in the 1st year or in the 4th. So in the 1st years, we concentrate our efforts in maybe in laboratory techniques and so on. And the 3rd year, we will work a lot with you about your oral skills, because you have to defend one thesis. This is more or less. We have a path for each year of your PhD. And the key is in talking with the Human Resources Department and say, I need, you have to do it.
In my institutions for PhD program, we organize a training focused on professional and technical competencies during the 1st and the 2nd year of a PhD. During the 3rd year, that is the last year in Italy, we organize specific trainings regarding the technology transfer competencies. For us, it's very important because we are technology transfer oriented as a mission in our institution. So we think that our PhD that are PhD in technology fields, it's important that they will be trained on these issues. And other courses, other training that we organize in the 3rd year are related to the competence to apply for a European grant, to write a European grant, and at least during the last months we are organizing a e-learning platform where some courses on soft skills will be given at the disposal of our PhD.
Yes, and at the LIH we also have someone who is specifically dedicated to all the PhD students. So at the beginning of the year, and it's done already, so very often in December already, she advertised on our intranet so the calendar of all the training that all the PhD can attend. And this is, of course, your mission to select the most appropriate ones for you. And yes, basically, you can attend whatever you want. You just need to know what is important for you.
So I have a question on some figures related to a permanent position. So what is the average age of researchers that got their first permanent position in your institution, and is it the representative numbers for your country, or yeah?
I hope to understand your questions. In my institutions, we have young researchers. We have an average of 33, 34 years. So we are young people. Generally, after the postdoc years, a postdoc can be hired as a researcher. In our case, there are two possibilities. One is a career development inside IIT. That means that a postdoc after 5 years could be evaluated for a researcher position. In this case, you could be researcher at 32, 33 years, 30 years. Or otherwise to apply to a job post published by IIT for searching of a researcher. These are two alternatives. But our aim is to keep young people in our staff. For us, it's important. It's important for people and also for the institution, because young people are the strength of an institution, and the institution can help to the growth of young people.
Yes, that's more or less the same. So very often we have PhD students who go for a postdoc in another country very often, and then they come back to the institute, and where we try to offer them a permanent position. So because we do like mobility, and we know that it's important in your career as well as a scientist. So we always try. You know, that's a small community, and we always try to expand our network and to stay in contact. And yes, the goal is, of course, to keep talented people on board.
Also for us.
So I have to say that one permanent position in science is difficult to achieve. It's difficult. Why? Because mobility is very important. You have to have experience in different research groups. So the PhD normally don't become permanent in ICN2. They depend sometimes or almost always on grants, and the grants are 3 years. When the PhD is finished, then they have to give the next step, the postdoc. We help to them to make wider their network, but we can't promise a permanent position from PhD to postdoc. When you are a senior researcher or so on, then it is probably that you have a permanent position, but not at the beginning of the career. To me, it's more or less incompatible with the research career. It's this way. I have to learn to work with retention talent in science, because in the private companies, one thing very, very important to retain the talent. In science, I think it's not so important because you have to share your knowledge with different groups. But at least we try to keep in contact with all the people that have worked with us.
One more question, maybe, before we move to the next session on funding schemes? Yeah.
Hello. Just one question. How important is your advice when hiring a PhD? I mean, for example, if you advise a PI that one candidate is the best, but he wants or she wants another one, so how do you do?
We never advise. So of course, we have all preference, but it's a consensus. So we all together take the decision of the selected candidate. It's not only that's why it's important to select someone in selection committees. It's only one person who decides for the rest. And if we totally disagree, because it might happen sometime that we are not in line with the principal investigator, sometimes we restart the selection process. When he thinks that a candidate is the best one, and the other ones all think that for different reasons, this candidate might not be the most appropriate one, sometimes it's better to restart the entire selection process. But you know, of course, and that's great that it doesn't happen very often, to be honest, because it's not that difficult to come to a consensus, because of course you need to have the technical skills, so you need to master the technical skills, and then very often it depends on the interpersonal skills. And then, as I told you before, we have at least one candidate who has the light in his or her eyes. And that's why, well, it doesn't happen very often that we have to restart everything from scratch. But yes, sometimes it happens.
Yes, also in Italy, in general, the evaluation committee, the majority of the evaluation committee will choose the best candidate, and HRO department will help them to evaluate the soft skills. Sometimes it could be there isn't the majority, or there are different opinions regarding the best candidates. And also for us, if we are not sure about the candidate, we prefer to restart the process. Because for a research institution, hire the worst candidate, it's a big problem for the scientist, because in science field there is no more time, and you have to be competitive, and so you need the right persons. So we are more. There is a lot of attention at this point of view.
So human resources doesn't decide the final candidate. We give visibility to the skills we have seen. We give advices, but we don't decide. The decision is of the panel, and the panel takes into account different things. I think there is no, or doesn't exist, the perfect candidate. I know the perfect candidate for my position, for example. I have abilities, and I have disabilities, don't, but I'm not good in something. So it must be consensus when agreed by all by the person of the panel, but I think human resources never decides.
So we need to close this session on the recruitment process in academia, and I would like really to thank you all three for your presentation, for your participation.